So Gareth, again, we sit here. Market's changed on us once again with
it's interesting, isn't it?
With lockdowns and
so we've had
whatnot.
What's this? What are we going to call the roadmap? Roadmap to hell, I like to call it.
The roadblock.
The roadblock.
Yeah.
Right. So the roadblock has been announced by our mate Premier Dan,
yep.
and it's very interesting about how that's going to do, because they've effectively locked Melbourne out of our market for another couple of weeks, and that's going to have a whole lot of different effects, and also the fact that they have to meet such really tough targets to be able to get back out again. So less than 5 a day, I think, for 2 weeks to be able to get to that second and third step within the roadmap. We're lucky. Regional, we get to go straight to step 2, which means that we can start. Things will start opening up a bit quicker. We've got to hope he doesn't reclassify Geelong, because he did threaten that. But hopefully we stay within the regional thing, and we stay under what we need to, and we get going. Where does that leave us? Well, I think we've when I look at the stats for the June quarter, we're actually had growth of 0.6%.
It's great that you mentioned that, because I think in the June quarter, as you said, we had 0.9% of an increase compared to Melbourne's negative 3.5%.
Right. Sorry, I said 0.6. It's 0.9. 0.9% growth to Melbourne's 3.6. That's fantastic, really, when you consider they're going backwards. So there's a gap, isn't there, really, in the market? So there's always been a gap, and as a valuer, we've always been very comfortable, because you've got this massive gap between Melbourne and Geelong. So you always had this buffer. Yeah. That's going to change.
Well, the interesting thing is, over the 12 months, we've had about a 6.8% increase, with 6 months of that being in COVID conditions. So, you hear in the media that market's going to slide back 10%.
We're gone.
We've actually gone the other way under really difficult conditions. So I think when we get to a stage where we get those Melbourne buyers back, I really do think we're going to really trickle. So,
well, so one of the main sales that comes to ratify what we're saying is that one that Jim Cross sold on the Esplanade. And well done, Jim. Fantastic result.
Jim Cross from McGrath's.
And McGrath's. And they sold a block of land. I think it's basically land value. The house wasn't much. And I think 800 square metre odd block for $2.4 million.
On the Esplanade.
Or around that sort of money. So really good money. Now, I think you've got to take yourself back in time a little bit to respect that sale, because it was only 3 years ago that we capped out as a market at 2.5 million, and we didn't have a sale above 2.5 million for nearly 5 years at that point. And to get a sale today, which is basically a rebuild or knockover at 2.4 on the Esplanade, when in the middle of this COVID thing, just shows you the strength of the market. And I believe that was also to a Melbourne purchaser. So when Melbourne purchasers can come back into the market, are we going to see the lid ripped off?
Potentially, because I think, when we've discussed it in previous episodes, I think the desire to escape Melbourne is going to really increase. So I think we're going to see a wave of Melbourne buyers that see opportunity, that see value, that see all the things that me and you probably take for granted, growing up in Geelong. But,
But, the thing about it, you're going to see this demand in the market. But are you guys as agents now listing property and getting ready for a spring for when it opens? Are you going, let's start a marketing campaign now to open that property and start that sales campaign when stage 4 is lifted from Melbourne? Or are you lifting properties now? What are you doing?
Look, a little bit of both, because there's very little stock coming on the market, so it's actually protecting prices. So we're achieving really good prices because of the stock levels.
Low stock. But we've got
generally now we actually see a large amount of auction campaigns. So we've actually had in Victoria 83% clearance rates, but the interesting thing is that 851 were non-auction sales and only 23 were auction sales.
Yeah, but this time last year we were talking thousands of auctions.
That's right.
Now we're talking
it just shows the level. So that spring market hasn't kicked in yet. But I think once we start seeing restrictions...
So much lower numbers, but still really strong numbers.
Correct, in terms of
value.
So
supply, as we said at the start, and we said a couple of weeks ago, that supply is constrained, and that's allowing demand to continue to be strong. And that's what's keeping the value of prices up, right? So spring selling season comes along, and we've got huge amounts of stock to come on, hopefully. And is this demand going to be enough to meet it? Will stage 4 lockdowns open up to allow that demand to come down and meet that? There's a lot of questions.
Let's hope we can get the roadblock lifted.
Yeah, we need the roadblock lifted. Come on, Dan, lift the roadblock.
So in episode 1, we featured property of the week was the sale, the impending sale of the GPO. And Gareth, we've seen in the last week that
it's been sold.
It's been sold.
It's fantastic. I reckon it's great news for Geelong. And I think that the council have done an amazing job of selling the building in a way that's going to provide a fantastic benefit to Geelong. There was a real consideration by the council that we would be able to, the outcome had to link the civic centres and with the hospitality hubs that we have in Little Mallet Street now, and that linkage had to occur. Yeah,
well, it's probably a good time to introduce our guest for
the
episode. It actually is Bill Votsaris, the successful purchaser of the GPO. And Bill, welcome to Prop by the Bar. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Michael.
And congratulations.
Thank you so much.
It's been big news for Geelong, the result, and it is outstanding, and I think it's a great outcome for Geelong. We will talk about the GPO, but I guess want to probably strip it back because you're not originally from Geelong.
No.
Melbourne.
Correct.
And property development wasn't your background initially. So,
correct again.
So would you mind stepping us through how, I guess, my understanding, IT based? So how you transition from being IT guru to, a really prolific property developer?
Well, thank you for those kind words, Michael. Firstly, I'd like to say that we as a family were exposed to the Geelong region by being blessed to relocate our weekender into the Bellarine. So we lived in Melbourne. Our circle of friends all lived on the other side of the coast. It's not something that interested us, but when we were exposed to the Bellarine, we just fell in love with it. Yep. And so the Bellarine then in turn exposed us to Geelong. The IT industry, which, I worked in the IT industry since I can remember. So I started life in the IT industry with Hewlett-Packard. It's a very fast-moving industry, but it's an industry that always works about the future. Yep. The IT industry is about the future. So when the time came to realign, readjust my personal and professional life, I think property was almost intuitive because investing in property is also investing in the future. No one invests in property about today. So that decision was made to alter our investment strategy. Property featured for that main reason, and then Geelong was a natural Monty because Geelong is about the future. Yep. So Geelong is classified as a regional town, but there's nothing regional about Geelong. Yep. Absolutely nothing regional.
Only the fact that we've got the best beaches, the best wine in the whole region, that's what's regional about.
And we have city-style offerings. We're now transitioning into professional services. So, so you can live a lifestyle, and I say once you've experienced it, you don't want to leave it.
So was it 2002, I think, you came down to Geelong?
Yeah.
And so
you would know because you probably valued it.
So that's 18 years ago. So you've been in Geelong long enough to see, and living in Port Arlington, and you brought your kids up obviously holidays here, Paul and Sarah, and you obviously been around to see the growth of what Geelong was going to and where it had been, especially when you would have been here when the Shell refinery closed and Viva wasn't here, and lots of Ford closures, all these closures of the industrial section, and that didn't turn you off wanting to come and invest down here?
Well, actually, to me, that was actually pivotal because having those industries that were heavily subsidised and only for short term by the governments created a level of instability that created a problem for investments, because investments are long term. Yeah. So when the governments made the decision to alter that kind of short-term subsidy for Alcoa and Ford, was the beginning of the transition in Geelong, right? So we've seen that.
And the same could be said for the hardships we're going through now and the challenging times we've got now. They're really, property is a long game, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, so if you're a property investor right now, you might look at it as an opportunity. Yeah. Okay. Right. So. And it is not about investing today. Make no mistake about that. I mean, you guys are in that field. You've been valuing forever, and you run a very successful real estate business. So it is about the future, and when you look at Geelong is very much about the future. So the two together I think it's an absolute perfect place to invest. But if we look at young people coming up and the way employment needs to happen to cater for young people, so they don't have to travel to Melbourne, they don't have to go to Melbourne to be entertained, they don't have to go to Melbourne to get a job as a secretary somewhere, let alone a law firm, and we've switched it around. We've got law firms from Melbourne establishing tier 2 legal firms in Geelong because they've worked out that they can employ better people because those people want this lifestyle. And they can deliver all those services. So instead of sending work to Melbourne from Geelong, it's happening the other way around. So
I just note that just on Bill's comment there, that Findex took a big lease out in Geelong recently in the Costa building. So Bill's 100% right with that these big law firms seeing Geelong as opportunity. Findex is a national company, as you know, and it's good to see them take a big lease out in Geelong, just along the lines of what you're talking about. So it's really good. But so you went, came from Geelong, came out to the region, you saw these attractions to the region. You started buying your property sporadically around town?
Yeah, so firstly the strategy was central Geelong because the fundamentals of property investment were, and the rhetoric was, very popular and still unchanged. And it was, and it still is. Proximity to Melbourne, gateway to the coast and a north-facing bay. So you can't get a better ingredient when it comes to property. So that hasn't changed because that's there. That's not a market condition. But it lacked a whole lot of other things that then all of a sudden influenced property values because of the fact that it was a little bit confused, let's just say, about what it is, and with as we touched earlier, with the industries and the transition. So it left properties undervalued significantly, and still today.
And I think you've got to paint to the viewer that back then you wouldn't have come back along these streets without having a baseball bat or a bodyguard. And so it was a very different place. There was a lot of vacancies. Was there 80 odd vacancies along here?
It said 86 empty shops in the photograph there. So that intrigued me, and as an active investor, I requested and was well received by the then CEO of Geelong Council and our local councillor to see what the strategy is and how they're going to deliver this Chinatown. And obviously, they didn't quite have a strategy, but they had a vision, which I took on board as a vision that, not as Chinatown, because that's a totally different process, but as a hospitality space. And I did have an article, subsequently say we will have 20 restaurants here. They're just not going to be 20 Italian restaurants. And so here we are realising that vision now. But what's making it happen are the people that are running these businesses, people like Johnny Helmer.
Salvador, our host is Salvador.
Absolutely.
And also we're drinking beautiful Port Arlington wine today, this Scotchman's Hill, one of my favourite Pinot Noirs. So you talked about different tenancies and different types of shops, and this is really quite fascinating for me as a property professional because essentially, whether you knew this or not, but what you've done is basically taken a model that they use in big shopping centres and you've applied it to a strip shop in an open area. And it's a fantastic model. And I think you only have to go to other regional towns like Warrnambool and Bendigo to see the beautiful active strips that they have when they when they don't have a Westfield, for example. But what you've done is you're looking at tenancy mixes. You're focused on changing tenancy mixes, on incentives, on making sure you've got complementary tenancies along the strip to make it active. And you were very, very prominent and about letting those tenants grow their businesses before, jumping on the monkey on the back, if you like. So
can I just say that firstly, no, it was not the shopping centres that were the inspiration, but I take the parallel, right? But it was a very, very clear strategy that when we are going to transform a precinct, that has to be significant investment. And our investment had to be significant in the structure of the building, not just hand over a building that's substandard with facilities that are just not up to code, let alone humane, and that pretend that the tenant is going to make it all happen. So we've exercised that, and therefore we've fixed the structure of the building and allowed the operator to come in and invest their funds in their business rather than fixing up a building. I mean, the very building we're in today, as an example, we're the second owner. It's been the same family since 1910.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And the amenities were probably never, ever improved in that 100 years.
Yeah.
And so therefore, how do you expect a business to be respected and patronaged by the public if they've got to experience that kind of... Absolutely. Okay, so here we are, and that's the strategy. So we invest, and then I guess if we do it right, and honestly, the community does.
Perfect.
He's pretty modest.
No, not at all.
He is. He was the one that single-handedly, don't mean to embarrass you, but he single-handedly transformed this whole precinct to what it is today.
I completely agree. And in some respects changes the way that a lot of people looked at Geelong. I mean,
absolutely.
We didn't come out into Geelong CBD, as it might. I'm 41 for the viewers who thought I was 20. And my generation just did not come out. The end of the days when the Lyric closed down and places like that was the end of times, and people watching will laugh when they hear the word the Lyric nightclub. But when Stuart Harrison used to own the pub here, the Eureka, that was probably the heyday of this precinct.
Well, it's created options for Geelong people. You don't have to go out to dinner in Melbourne now. You don't have to go and get a drink in Melbourne. So this whole precinct started with one building at the corner of James Street and Little Mel Street.
Correct.
Yeah.
And to attract the tenancy back then, you'd have to offer incredible incentives, but that's what has to happen to do it right.
So was hospitality? Do you think hospitality was the right? Does that have to be the first stepping stone to reinvigorating a township centre? Because that's basically what you've done here. You might have just concentrated on this precinct, but it has reinvigorated the whole CBD.
It wasn't hospitality alone. I mean, we had a clear strategy, and we delivered to that strategy. So we did a little interview with a Geelong advertiser, and I think it was within certainly less than 2 years, maybe 12 months, where we actually had attracted 63 new businesses in this precinct. Now, a lot of them were very small operators serviced offers. But those individual talented professionals, we gave them favourable terms to be able to set up a business and function within here, which made the coffee cartel a more viable business. So it was the two together. It wasn't just the one.
And you had some support. I know a certain real estate agent here who also invested in the precinct.
Well, he was, let's just say, when Michael decided to bring the real estate business to the precinct, I was a bit shocked because you'd expect a real estate agency, and particularly one that's both in commercial and residential, to be in a prominent, high traffic.
But that's what this has become.
Yeah, but it wasn't. It wasn't. Okay, so Michael brought his business into the precinct, and it was a surprise, but it didn't take long for me to work out that his strategy was correct.
So we've recreated this hub along here, and then the GPO comes up for sale. It's not just your only large scale development you've got on the go. You've got quite a few on the go, and they're not just with one set of group of people. You've got investors now. Correct. So tell us about your journey going from your own investment to then going out, reaching out to investors and other people and start looking at doing slightly different things from the strip.
Well, I mean, we're very open-minded in the way we approach our projects. So, we're involved with the Hamilton Group or Thomas the Jewellers, and we've had our challenging journey there because you've got two people with different ideas, but at the end we're delivering, I think, what will be the ultimate addition to that building, bar none. And those people that have access to those images, and I hope you put them up, you'll see that how that design evolved from what it started out to what it is today, and it did take the both of us for that to occur.
So speaking of growing in different directions, Bill, if we go a little bit further west than the West End precinct, let's talk about GPO.
So if I can now share some of the ideas that...
Can you just give us a breakdown of what the vision is?
Really, there are three, maybe four key elements to what we're proposing. Not in any order of importance, but here they are. Firstly, we are reinstating the original entrance of the GPO. We're not creating a new one.
So
reinstating.
Facing Jerningham Street.
Facing Jerningham Street.
Yeah.
So that's how the post office was commissioned, and that's how it was designed. And of course, it makes total sense. If you've got two streets and one is facing south and one is facing east, where would you put your front entrance?
Yeah.
Where it was originally.
Well, you put it east.
Back east,
That's how you
facing
design it. No architect would design a magnificent building like that and put the main entrance facing south.
Yeah.
So we're reinstating that. Secondly, we're reinstating the original atrium. So that building in the middle. So as you look at the outside, where you got the slate roof with parapets. The centre comes down, and it's a flat roof at the moment, but that was only done because of maintenance costs.
Yep.
So that was an atrium. So when you're sitting in the middle of the post office, it's infilled with light. Now it's got half a dozen skylights on a flat tin roof front. So the atrium will go back in.
That's
quite a significant expense, but it's pivotal to what we're proposing in the end, because we are saying that we're going to bring this building into a 21st century experience. So retain and respect all the features, bring back the ones that have gone, but more importantly, the experience of the consumer and there will be 21st century. The third thing will be the removal of the extension that on the north side, which will totally free up the original building. So it'll be totally visible. There'll be nothing attached to it, but we will build a new, totally contemporary building, detached from the post office and set back about 5 metres, and that will achieve our objective in saying for a project to be successful, it has to be viable. And to be viable, it must be successful. Therefore, we have to have enough hotel rooms to make it viable and successful. Otherwise...
So how many rooms are we talking?
40.
40. And that's a good size, I believe, Mike. That's a real good size. And we're going from about 1,700 square metres of lettable space to 3,200 square metres of lettable space under Bill's model. And I think there's 700 square metres of hospitality as well, other than the hotel.
But a very important feature, because now we're linking now and expanding the hospitality precinct here onto Jerningham Street towards the arts, and linking it to the arts. The interface of the new contemporary building, that entire front wall, is an art wall that we will be in discussions with the relevant people like GPAC. There'll be a competition and it'll change. It'll be an art wall that'll change every year with a theme that's appropriate at the time. So when you are walking up Little Malp or either way from Jerningham, the entire facade behind us screen them, it's a brilliant idea by the architect, will be an art wall.
Fantastic. And a wellness centre, I think, as well.
So, well, that's one of the facilities will be absolutely hospitality, hotel, and a wellness centre of a standard that is worthy of Geelong, and we need to have one in Geelong.
So my understanding is you want an upmarket operator for a hotel. If you had to peg a hotel in Melbourne to compare it, or what vision you'd like to see out of the GPO?
Well, we did copy some ideas or get inspired, let's just say, because we can't use the word copy because it is totally different. We have been inspired by the QT because we are also introducing the rooftop. And when you are in the rooftop of this new modern building, contemporary building, you will be looking down at the foyer of the GPO through the atrium. And vice versa.
And like there's some beautiful parts of this building. There's these beautiful timber stairwells. They're not just timber, concrete and timber and other things.
They're not concrete, they're bluestone.
Bluestone, are they? Bluestone. And they're beautiful stairs. There's also heaps of other features that hopefully you'll be able to bring out.
I think the thing with this project, we will keep the community closely informed, but let everybody reassured that this project will deliver for everyone.
It's going to be fantastic.
Fantastic. Outstanding result. Just before we let you go, just want to get your views. Like I get a lot of people that have come to me and said, I've been speaking with Bill. I don't know how you get in contact with all these people, to be honest. I've been speaking to Bill, and he's told me to buy something in the CBD. You're a great supporter of the CBD, which I love, because I love the CBD and have set up my business here. But what do you see the next 5 or 10 years particularly happening in Geelong, particularly in the CBD?
Well, take the time frame away, because, I never like to work to a time frame, rather work to a vision in the future. So if I approach it that way, then when we started looking at Geelong and investing ourselves, I guess the future was, let's just say, a bit unclear. Today, the future is very clear. Take the timing out, okay? So the future is very clear. Geelong, by all possible analysis and descriptions, is not regional, but it gets the benefit of all government policy around regional. I mean, for instance, you can buy a property in Geelong that's commercial and industrial and pay 50% in stamp duty because it's regional, okay? It gets the benefit of the strategy the governments have about decentralising into regional. So Geelong gets all of those benefits, okay? But it is not regional. It is Victoria's second largest city and growing at a rate that's faster than anything else. So it really, from a property investor's perspective, including the favourable zoning of central Geelong, it really pretty hard to get it wrong.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Bill, thanks very much for joining us at Prop by the Bar, and congratulations to the GPO.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you for the invitation to allow us to tell our story.
Pleasure.
Love what you do for Geelong anyway.
Thanks, Michael.
So what a great guest Bill was. What an intriguing chat we had.
He's good, isn't he? And the fact that he's done so much, and he's a little bit humble about it, but he's not just a developer. He's got his own little development team on the side that is fixing up old buildings. And I'm going to go back to that term I keyed with Cam, that he's phoenixing old buildings.
Yeah.
He's building areas, and he's using these strategies, these much big holistic strategies around his property investment, rather than just one here and one there and sporadic investment. He's got a real cool strategy that he started with, that he's worked through. So his story, from a property excited person as I am, it's an exciting story.
Yeah.
It's an marvellous
I just love how passionate he is for Geelong.
Yeah, he's really good, really passionate for Geelong, and that's good. We need more of those.
So Geelong, property.
Yeah.
Property of the week.
Yeah, so property of the week. So this week we're going to look at 114 to 122 Maribel Street. It's currently on the market with Geelong Commercial, really good agents, Neville Richards and Pat Richards. Yeah, really good fellas. And they've got this property. Now it's a key, for me it's another key corner. It's a key building in central Geelong. And
wraps the main street into this hospitality precinct as well.
To take off from where Bill was at, it is another key corner. So we had Thomas the Jewellers as a key corner. You had Bright Hitchcock was a key corner, and this building is another key corner. And it's they're high profile corners. Now this property is
break it down for us.
Yeah, so we've got 6 retails facing Maribel Street, I believe, including the Bloom nightclub. So if viewers know where the Bloom nightclub is, the downstairs,
the old McDonald's.
The old McDonald's. Yeah. So we've got that there. There's the kebab store. If you're there at 2 a.m. in the morning, it's good kebab. And on the corner you've got the dessert bar. Now I've got a bit of a story about the dessert bar, because the other day I completely forgot my wife's birthday. And we're
talking. Put this on film.
We're talking about we're talking about Saturday night at about 4 o'clock, and I'm running around trying to find a birthday cake. And I go to the dessert bar, and she pulls out a cake with a big love heart thing on it and everything. And I got home and I gave it to the wife, and I got dinner organised and everything, and she thought it was planned for months. It was fantastic.
And now you've just given that away.
I've just given it away, but she knew already, she picked it up. So I was already in trouble about it. Yeah. But that dessert bar, the cakes are beautiful. So it's a prominent corner. We've also got the tattoo bar upstairs. I've had a couple of tenancies upstairs. So I think all up there's 9 tenancies. It's returning about $352,000 per annum. It's an investment play. and it's an investment play on the market. It's an interesting time to have an investment play like that on the market. With COVID, I think we had we are filming today on Tuesday. We had Sunday was the big announcement that was going to take us, the roadmap announcement. That's the roadmap to hell. But hopefully it gets a bit better. But if it wasn't for the roadmap to hell, where would we be? What does that do to an investment play on the market right now? It's really quite fascinating. Agents are saying, other agents outside you, are saying that we're still getting buyers from Melbourne looking at this market. Yeah. What do you think?
Yes and no. You've taken a little bit of the heat. So probably, I find from a commercial sense, almost 60 to 65% of my market or buyers come from Melbourne.
Yeah.
They're not coming down here, clearly.
Yeah.
So it's just taking a little bit of heat of the market. There's still activity. The amount of search coming from Melbourne in terms of keyword Geelong has skyrocketed.
RP Data says we're up 58% on the keyword search Geelong as opposed to where we were this time last year.
So I think once restrictions ease, I actually think we're going to get bombarded with Melbourne people and inquiries.
I think we really are.
At the moment, it's a little bit stagnant to where we had discussed, a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. We just need that confidence to come back, but essentially we just need people to be able to get down here. So, So coming back to...
As a being an agent with that property, if you were selling that property and a buyer from Melbourne wanted to sell the property, what would you have to do? Do you have to get them some sort of paper signed that they can get through the roadblock and the Great Wall of China we built at Little River? Or how do they get down here? Can they see it? What's the story?
They need a predetermined or arranged inspection. Yeah, so they need to actually be able to provide proof.
But they can do it,
that.
right?
Yeah, they can.
Yeah, right. So that's interesting. So what that might be doing is filtering out some of the tyre kickers. Yeah. Would it be?
Definitely. I think we've been in that type of period since the beginning of COVID. A lot of the markets are shallow. So you're dealing with real buyers. Yeah, real buyers. We're probably talking a yield of 5.5 at the moment. It's going to be interesting to see where that lands. But what happens there? Because so it's really going to be interesting to see how that plays out in this current environment and market. But it is a good investment field. And I think a friend of ours that we just talked to showed us how much the land values and the demand has increased for this precinct that this property sits in. So is this perhaps not an investment play? Perhaps this is a development play? Long term, absolutely. I think the dynamics of Moorabool Street over time will change. It's too important of a street. It's the main one that runs all the way from Belmont all the way down to Easter Beach to the Bay. So I think long term Moorabool Street will find itself again. It's there's some issues there with buses but I think over time, bit like what Bill said, the long term view, I think it's a killer spot. Just moving off from that, we've always asked our viewers if they do have any questions or any topics they want to discuss. We actually did have one come through during the week. And the question
so that
was
means someone's watching us, Mike. There's actually one person.
At least one person.
One person's out there.
At least one person. But they did ask about the former Alcoa site.
Alcoa's, it's a good site. So thanks very much for the question, firstly, because it allowed me to go out and do some research. Because it's not actually out there very easily to find. And a lot of the sites like G21 and Council that had the plan for Alcoa up on their website have taken them down. But there was the Alcoa 575 precinct plan, which was put out there by Alcoa in 2016, and then it was put out for community consultation, and it's gone through that period. Right now, out there, they're still undertaking the reconstruction and the decontamination works that need to happen with that site.
Yeah, it'd be a hell of a job.
Yeah, and that is to continue right through to the end of 2021, I think 2020 or 2021. So we've still got a period to go before that's a clean site and it's an active place that we can start to think about. It's interesting that it was included, Alcoa and the whole Point Henry was included in the Geelong strategic growth plan
Yep.
that was ratified by council 2 weeks ago, and so it's included there. And there is some parts of that in there that are segmented for residential growth.
Yep.
And that's interesting. We know that that Ridley's, I think it's still Ridley's, have a lot of the salt pans,
Yep.
and are still investigating or working through how to redevelop the salt pans. I
have seen plans in the past about lakeside type blocks with marinas and.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
What we've got a problem with is the height, I think, and where we're talking about a very low waterline area, so and flood inundation area. So there's going to have to be a huge amount of civil works to remediate that area for development, for residential development. And we've also got a problem with sewage and other water access to water that comes through the Moolap area and feeds into there. So. I think there's a lot of civil works and a lot of planning and a lot of costs, and whether there's a cost outweighs the benefit or needs to be done there to have to bring that back. In the meantime, we do have the Precinct 575 structure plan that's put out by Alcoa and ratified with council and G21 and other people, and that gives you a range of different uses, and they've considered environmental impacts and all sorts of stuff. But we've got to remember that I think Winchester was out there, and I think they might have just recently moved or left their site. There's still a large chemical plant out there that produces some pretty toxic chemicals, I believe. I think that there's some buffer distances around that chemical plant that still need to be considered, and I think there's some planning around that. So to be honest, to go back to the viewer, to answer your question is, other than the decommissioning of the Alcoa plant, there's really no concrete plan of what's going to happen to the Alcoa or Point Henry Peninsula.
Can't wait to see what happens, because being where it is, overlooking the bay, it's...
When you go out there and park your car in the car park, you have some of the best views of Corio Bay.
What are you doing out there?
It's beautiful out there. I've had to do the valuations out there, but it's a good fishing spot out there, Mike.
Anyway, thanks for tuning in. We are out of time. I'd like to thank John at Celador for hosting us again. Special thanks to Bill Votsaris for coming in and having a great chat with us. As always, any questions or topics you want us to touch on, please contact us. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.